that Mr. Basi is highly bored with the things that I do say. If he remembers them.
No, not at all.
But as you heard, thank you. As you heard in the introduction, I have been working on, when I say working on, I have been in the area of police reforms, or understanding them and seeing whether there can be something done. And we started off with the question today about why. Why is there so much violence on the street? Mr. Subramaniam talked about particularly traffic and road rage. But there are all sorts of other kinds of rage that we witness on the streets. Burglary, chain snatching, intimidation, and it comes from all areas. I mean, it comes from the citizen, definitely, but it also comes from the police. And this is something that we have to admit, as Mr. Subramaniam said two or three times, that this is not a critique or this is not to embarrass Mr. Basi. I think that's the main thing. But it is certainly, I mean, one can't get away from it, so we might as well talk about it and call a spade, because this is what we see. Now, we know, the thing I wanted to point out today is we know the problem, and we don't need to reiterate it again and again. We also know the solution, because there have been solutions. There are solutions right from 1903 when we talked about the Torture Commission, right down to now about the lack of law enforcement or the way in which law enforcement takes place. And so we know that there are solutions and recommendations. The point for deliberation tonight, perhaps, if we could focus down on it, is why it is not happening. Now, even there we know some of the answers, why it is not happening. Mr. Subramaniam alluded to the fact that it's not in the self-interest of a certain set of people, perhaps those people in power, to make it happen. So in that case, all we are left with is to mount public opinion, to create public opinion. Not only to create public opinion, but to create opinion and give voice to people within the police who are good, decent, honorable, professional, capable, who would like to speak out, who would like and to engage with them so that we can do this better. When I say do this better, the joke is actually on me. I was at a meeting in Bombay some years ago, and there was quite a big audience, and somebody said to me, "ये सब lecture बाजी आप करते रहते हैं, लेकिन police reform कब होगी?" So I said, देखिए जी, I don't know police reform कब होगी, लेकिन जब तक हम जिंदा हैं, तब तक हम कोशिश करते रहेंगे, और जब हम मरेंगे, उसके पहले तो पुलिस रिफॉर्म जरूर आएगी। तो फिर कहीं पीछे से कोई उठा और बोला, फिर तो मैडम आप तो अमर ही रहेंगी। लेकिन हमारी कोशिश है कि हम अमर न रहें और पुलिस रिफॉर्म अमर रहे। So this is where we are coming from. So now, just to take you through, many of you know this, but I would like to talk a little about it. Why do we have road rage? Why do we have so much violence and aggression on the street? My belief is very simple. If there is, our contract with our state is that we will give up the right to self-defense, except when it is in extremis, but we will give it all, we will clothe our police and our government to do our coercive bit for us. They will protect us so that we don't have to take things into our own hands. But that contract has broken down because we see it breaking down. And so we have vigilantism in the absence of law. Whether it's in a car, we have law enforcement also, but we don't have law upholding. So there is example also that we have to take. If we see the most important of us, the most powerful of us, the person who is wearing the uniform, the person who is in our legislature, who is prepared to show us power rather than show us respect, of course we will emulate that. What else is the citizen to do? The third thing that I think is very important to note, and this is on a wider scale that I am talking about, is that you must be assured of a remedy if you go to the law. After all, what else do you have? You can go to your family for counseling. You can go to your doctor if you're ill. But if you need a remedy at law to uphold your right as a citizen, and the right of your neighbor, and the right of your daughter, where must you go? You must be able to go to the law. If you're going to the law, then you must be assured of a remedy. At the moment, there is no sense that the law will bring you justice. Now, this is not, I believe, only an issue for the police. This is a broader question of the criminal justice system. It is also the question of 2 or 3 generations now of younger people who have seen everything work except the law. So when I go to court now, I see younger lawyers who act in a way in the first appearance which is entirely outside the law. The magistrate accepts it, and the consequence of this goes to whom? The consequence of this falls on the poor person who is either the victim or is the accused. This is my broader point. But coming now to just the police, as I told you, there are remedies as well as there are problems. Problems are known, I will not go through them again. Each of us, anecdotally as well as from our reading, understand what those problems are, and perhaps nobody better understands them than the police and the supervisory cadres of the police. They really do understand the problems, but they are also, and now the solutions. The solutions come at 2 levels, in my view. This is only for the sake of this conversation with you that I am talking about this in this particular organized way. There is much more, but in 15 minutes, I don't intend to bore you for more. I don't intend to go further than this. In my view, there is the problem, there are the solutions which are the big structural solutions. How shall we reform the police at a larger global level? And then there is the administrative level, which is the here and now. On the here and now, I want to say immediately that I am not a radical, nor am I an extremist. I wish that I did not have to be a gradualist, but I do understand how difficult it is to change things within the police structure. I do understand there is a balance to be struck by the supervisory classes and that they do try hard to strike them. But I think that the situation is so far gone that it is extremely difficult for somebody with a tenure of 3 years or 2 years or 5 months to do anything about it. Anything that is lasting and that will stay. And this is what is perpetuating the problem and the disbelief in the police. At the big structural level, and the solutions have been put down by the Supreme Court, I am not going to go through the Prakash Singh judgment and the 6 directives that they gave. But I want to point out what has the Delhi government done about these directives. The directives were given in 2006. Now we are coming close to 2016. It took from 2001 to earlier from 1996 to 2006 to get the directives. Then the directives came and they are being solidly resisted all over the country. Basically what the directive said was, listen, the problem of policing is one of interference rather than supervision and control. Therefore, we must have a separation of the police from the politician. Everybody agreed, everybody nodded, everybody said yes. So what you want to do is set up an SSC. Now, you've been hearing the squabble between there's nothing more on television, and Mr. Subramaniam is constantly on television telling us what to think about it. It is between the Lieutenant Governor and the CM, and one of the issues is policing. Now, it's very interesting. Mr. Kejriwal is saying, I want the police under my control. Governor is saying, I am the administrator over here, this is under the Home Ministry, and that's how it is, and this big change cannot happen. There are all sorts of things. Okay, it can be open to public debate. But the thing that gets lost in underneath that is there is a State Security Commission on which Mr. Kejriwal sits and on which Governor Jung sits. And there are other people on that. Since 2013, this instrumentality, which is meant to look at police performance and police policy, a policy for the police, which is supposed to be created in conjunction with the police chief. And I would hope in conjunction with the public of Delhi, with their participation, so that you understand what is my police supposed to do for me. And the police understands this is what I can do given the fact that I have huge vacancies, that I have no proper working hours, that I have no proper accommodation, that I have no proper oversight. This is what I can do. And this is what I'm saying on paper, this is my contract, I can do it. Then a year later, 2 years later, whenever you like, you make a performance evaluation, not only of the individual policeman, but of a police station, of a district, and you go back to the legislature. It could be the Delhi legislature, it could be parliament. You go back and you say, this is what we could do. This is what the public satisfaction is. None of this is taking place while they squabble about who and who and who. What do I care who and who and who? I'm a ordinary public person. I am the Aam Aadmi. And I can't get satisfaction. This is my problem. This is why I go into a rage. That is one part of it. There was another, there was a whole lot of stuff on tenure and management, etc. But for our evening today, the other interesting directive was there should be a police complaints authority in Delhi. That police complaints authority is now with the public grievance, what is it, public grievance cell? Public grievance commission? Public grievance commission. They themselves already, without having to look at the police themselves, they have a huge backlog. How can they now take on the complaints of the public? There is also confusion. There is the public grievance cell, or public grievance commission. There is the Human Rights Commission. There is the internal inquiries of the police themselves. There is a new cell which has been set up by the Delhi government to listen to complaints of the public. The police are gherraud by complaint mechanisms. Each of these, I appreciate, I am one of those people who say that we must have multiple levels of accountability. And I am not giving up on that. Certainly there should be multiple levels of accountability. But there must be clarity on what the police are expected to be accountable to and to whom. And if there is a straight line accountability and transparency in that accountability, you will get immediate public satisfaction. The very fact that the Delhi government, which came in with a huge electoral majority, set up this thing, set up this new mechanism, and said, come on, complain to us and we will see how it goes, has actually increased the numbers of complaints. Not because the police are much worse in the last 10 months than before. It's not that. It is that people have some confidence that there's koi sunwai to hogi. And I'm sure that Mr. Basi spends a lot of his time looking to see whether ye sunwai se koi satisfaction bhi aa raha hai ki nahi aa raha hai. One of the interesting things that I see now that is happening is there is less defensiveness in the police. There is more willingness of the supervisory cadres to say, we don't want these bad eggs and we will improve them. I think that has to be recognized as well. I talked about the large, the big structural reforms that were laid down, but I also want to talk about, what can be done in the here and now. One of the things you may have seen some time ago, just a few weeks ago, which was reported was that you can't take in your cell phone and with the cameras, or you can't take in just the cell phone into a police station. There was some sort of order like that. And now I believe I read about it, it might be extracted, has been retracted. I'm not sure about my facts on this one because I've only read it in the papers. But I just wanted to point that out as a difference in mindset. The police station is a public service. The police station is a public place. Certainly you may want to make it secure from the terrorists, from the extremists, from the gunman who might come and shoot you, all that, just like we would like to protect our own homes. But it is essentially a public space with a public service to be given there. And I think that mindset has to change, and somehow the supervisory cadres and the leadership of the police have to bring it about. It cannot be a fortress. The other thing is, I do not think at this moment in time that the police see themselves, the rank and file of the police, see themselves as a service. They see themselves perhaps as a defensive, almost like a moat, psychological moat surrounding them and an us. That cannot be the case. That has to change. That change has to come from within the police. It is no good saying that public ऐसे है, public वैसे है. When we take on the governance of our country, we cannot then make an excuse and say there are 1.2 billion people, we can't control them. They are too diverse. You took on the governance of the country, you govern. And govern in the way and according to the Constitution. That's what you're supposed to do. Don't make excuses about it. When I say you, I'm talking about the general you, not people in this room. So there are actionable measures. What do people want? They don't want whole-scale police reform. It's too technical for them to understand. But people do understand that they want better policing. And for them, better policing means policing that is a service that will uphold the law. Police cannot also make the excuse that ये हमसे नहीं हो रहा है तो हम working करेंगे, false arrest करेंगे, detaining करेंगे, 109 का करेंगे, रात को आके किसी को उठा जाएंगे, मिलेगा नहीं तो उनकी बीवी को जाके threaten करेंगे. You can't do this and then say you are policing. You are doing something, but it is not policing. And I think we have to be absolutely clear on that. I know that crime is rising. The crime graph is rising. But the crime graph is rising because governance is part of the problem through which this rage is finding an outlet. So the revamp of police stations, the reallocation of budgets, the openness and transparency, the participation of the public, making a plan, developing police plans. Now there's an argument going on in the Supreme Court just now about separating investigation and law and order duties. It's very difficult to do when you have the kind of percentage shortfall. I'm sure Mr. Basi will tell you how much it is. The percentage shortfall in the policing that you have. How can you make clear plans when you create this huge shortfall? That has to be sorted out, and that the government has to sort out. And that's why you have an SSC to make these evaluations. You never meet. And then when you do meet, you don't publish the minutes. You have to go for an RTI and then an appeal and all that to get the minutes. What is so secret? It is the safety of the public. That is a public issue. You have to insulate the police from political interference. I'm using the word interference. I am not